Well, hi everyone, it's Pete here from the Pain Toolkit. And listen, who have I got with me today? I've got my very good friend, Dr. Bronnie, Lennox Thompson, all right down here in New Zealand. And I know it's good evening to you, Bronnie. Thanks very much for doing this video with me. How are you today?
I'm good, but a bit exhausted, and we've had our first cold snap of the season. So it's pouring down outside, and the temperature's dropped about 10 degrees in half an hour this morning, and it's going to stay. It's about 8 degrees, I believe.
Well, it's any constant luck with chilly here. Still supposed to be our summertime, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's what it is.
these things take time, don't they?
Listen, Bronnie, we've had many chats over the years, etc., and
Yep.
met up a few times. Um, the idea of this video really is to talk about the new paint toolkit, the Prehab paint toolkit, where
Mm.
it's the idea behind it is to prepare people for perhaps they've got a procedure or operation, or if they're considering tapering off their pain medication, etc. It's a way of preparing them before that. I mean, what's your take on this? This
I
idea?
think it's fantastic. Yeah, I think people people often, well, we know that having surgery is stressful for any kind of procedure, even what they call a minor procedure. It's stressful, and we know the effect of stress on pain, which is to rev everything up. And so the better skills that we can have to manage that stress, and even to reduce the stress in some cases, the better it is for us. And it doesn't have to all be exercise. There are a whole lot of things that we can do to help
Hmm.
prepare for these events.
Listen, you was telling me earlier that you had recently been to attended the New Zealand Pain Society conference there in Auckland, and
Yeah.
there was some ideas floating around rehab.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they were actually, some of them were around just managing pain when your pain levels are higher than normal. So either
Mhm.
through a flare up, or if you've had, say, surgery and you've got that high intensity pain. Um, and then there were some ideas around how to support yourself after that. And it's really around managing the stress and that sense of when your pain levels are going up and the stress comes on, how can I settle them down and keep confident? Because I don't know about you, but when my pain levels go up, I start to, my thinking starts to go down that spiral. And I don't like to listen to my mind because I know who's telling me things. It's not always sensible. And at the same time, it kind of can get you down. So one of the ideas was called savoring, and it's a savoring meditation. So the idea behind this is to spend some time thinking back to a really enjoyable memory, something that you can remember in all the detail that you can. So it might be the smells and the tastes and the colors, maybe the people that were there, the sounds, the way that you felt. And what you do is you bring that to mind and you remember just how good it was. And every time your mind slides off to, worry about things, as minds do, you can just bring your mind back to remembering the details of this wonderful experience. So it's great if it's something that's either really relaxing or it's a time when you just felt really good. Um, for you, it might be when you came down here to Christchurch and you wandered around the gardens and then went off to the beach, and you know,
I was just about to
um,
say that. I do
yeah.
that. New Zealand is my happy place.
I would love to have you back. You know that.
Yeah, I'm gonna I'll
Um,
have to go back.
yeah. So it's those sorts of things. It seems to be really a really good way to get you through those really uncomfortable times when your pain level's high, but also when you're starting to get, brooding on what's coming ahead and you're not quite sure what's going to happen. And what they showed with this was that when they compared people who did this with people who didn't, who had a sham intervention, and they gave them a painful, it was an experimental thing, so they made them feel pain, it helped to reduce the pain. as well as that, it helped people to stay with that experience for longer, so they didn't feel like they had to say, stop the experiment. So your pain levels drop a little bit and you get that better ability to stay with it, which I think has got to be a really good thing for your body, especially sort of if you in those moments before you go in for your procedure, when you're sitting in the waiting room and you're waiting, maybe you haven't eaten something and you're feeling a bit hungry and a bit kind of squeamy. That's the time to close your eyes and just bring to mind this really good experience. And then the other time is when you're in recovery, when you're feeling a bit sort of, I don't know about you, but I always feel a bit grotty and a bit dozy and not that wonderfully well. Because this is something that you would have practiced, that's one thing you have to do with this technique. You can bring it to mind when you're in recovery, feeling a bit dopey, and the experience is still there, something that you can really remember. So the key thing with that technique is to remember it and to practice it so that it's something that you're really familiar with before, ahead of time. And actually, I think that's for all prehab. I think that's a really important thing, that you get good at the skills that you use, so that you're not just jumping in and trying to learn this new thing at the last minute, right when things are a bit, your body's saying, hold on, I want to focus on this. Another part to that is this idea of getting some idea from the person that's doing your treatment to tell you what's going to happen. They don't have to go into lots of detail, but they can tell you, and what we're going to do is this, and then we do this, and then we do this. That takes away some of that uncertainty. So it might be things like, well, we're going to get you into this really, really lovely gown that always does up at the back, showing you, we won't go into detail, but you know what I mean. You're in the gown, and then they'll say, and now we're going to lie you down. So they actually just step you through that. It helps to know what's coming next. And I think that's a really helpful thing for just calming you down and knowing that there's an end, because that really makes a big difference. Then the second thing was looking at, what do you do when you go home after you've had this procedure? And one of the techniques that they've been using with, again, with acute pain, so people have had surgery, is sending text messages saying, you can do this. And this was in an opioid tapering study that some colleagues of mine are doing out of Auckland. So they talked to people who had who were going to be withdrawing. They asked them what things help and what things might not help. What do you want to say? Then they got some people who'd gone through the process and asked them what had helped them. And they pulled together all these nice statements that people had made and chose the best ones. And then they just sent a text saying, remember this part is your most painful part. It's going to be over soon. Just breathe. And then this is what you need to do to remember to drop the dose down. And yes, you might feel a bit of, diarrhea, and maybe nobody's told you about this. This is how you can help yourself. So I know that's probably more from getting the health professionals to do that, but there's no reason that you can't do that as a person living with pain. Get yourself somebody who knows you to send you some encouraging texts, not just saying you're going to be fine, but reminding you to do things and breathe and go for a walk, and it's going to be over in another couple of days. Those little coping things that just remind you what to do and why, and that it's not going to last forever. And I thought those were just two really nice, simple, low cost, well, no cost in the case of one, that you can do for yourself.
Well, I'll tell you, I like them too, and I'm gonna keep them in mind as well. I think with a lot of us people with pain, etc. With me, I'm talking about myself really, but I can really project a lot. If I'm, sort of thinking, well, that'll happen, and when it happens, I'll have to do this and da da da. And you
Mm.
know, all the projection I do, it never actually works out the way
No.
that I thought it was going to do that. You know,
Yeah.
and I think what I found with managing pain and my other health conditions is to prepare more, like, you know, and I like the idea of, you know, the texting business, like, because I think it's that
Yeah.
positive self-talk, you know,
Yeah.
that I can do this, you know.
Yeah.
I think,
Gets you out of that loop
yeah,
of worrying about things.
yeah,
And I think the other thing that we often don't think about is sleep. So after a procedure, um, you know, even the night before, but after a procedure, if it's something like you've had a joint replacement, or maybe you've had to have some kind of procedure that's quite painful, sleep is usually not great. So some things to think about would be to make sure you've got your music playlist on your phone and your headphones. Because even if you're not asleep, at least you can lie in bed with your headphones on and just rest. And I had to do this because at the conference, I've been running around like a giddy chook and I couldn't sleep. So
yeah,
because my mind was really busy.
yeah,
So I just reminded myself that even though I'm not actually asleep, my body's resting, I'm breathing slowly, and actually I'm going to be fine. I didn't get a lot of sleep and I'm tired now, but I imagine if I had been worrying, how am I going to cope tomorrow, that I would have been in a much, much worse state. In fact, I know I would have, because that's what I used to do. So I think, and I really do like using music as a way to distract me from, you know, especially if you're in a recovery ward or something, there's all that noise. So put the headphones on, have your favorite music and play that. Doesn't My partner likes to listen to Meatloaf, so it doesn't have to be calming, soothing music, you know,
yeah.
it can be whatever you like to help you sleep or relax.
Well, I'll tell you what's fantastic. I'll tell you, once we've actually written the Pain Toolkit song, so we're learning how to play it at the moment, but that'll be available soon. That'll be something that maybe something that you may want to use to fall asleep to, etc.
Yeah. You
So
wouldn't put me to sleep. You wouldn't put anyone to
um,
sleep. Those dulcet
it,
tones.
it would have been. I can't sing. Listen, Bronnie, thanks very much for that. It's really appreciated, and I know it's you know, it's, you know, you've given your time up, etc., for making a video.
Pleasure.
So listen, guys, hope you found some handy tips there from Bronnie. Bronnie's quite well known in the O2 occupational therapy world. But I'm a big fan of hers. She's really helped me out over the years as well. So check out the video. Don't forget to look at there's other videos there with other interviews that we've done with other healthcare professionals, talking about Prehab. So, Bronnie,
Yep.
thanks very much. Take care. Be cool and
It's a
groovy.
pleasure
Take
as
care.
ever. Yeah.
Ciao.
Awesome stuff. Ciao.